الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to thank the scientific committee for putting me in front of one of our eminent rheumatologists on this topic. قبل ما أبدأ أحب أبارك لجميع مشجعي الهلال والمنتخب السعودي على منجزاتهم. وأنا دائما أشوف إنه فريق الهلال طبعا يعني إيش يمكن أفضل فريق يمثل المملكة. Please remember this at the end of the talk. طيب. Okay, so this is my disclosure. So I have worked with all pharmaceutical companies that produce biologics and small molecules. And I regard Dr. Hussein Halabi as a role model rheumatologist in the region. So I'm gonna go really soft on him. Okay, so this is gonna be my agenda. So because I see Dr. Hussein Halabi as a great rheumatologist, so I thought to embody biologics and small molecules. And clearly, biologics are large molecules and small molecules are small. Biologics have a clear position in treatment algorithm. So Dr. Hussein Halabi has a very clear career path as an academic affairs director for years in King Faisal. I've been roaming around in multiple hospitals. Safety and efficacy were established. He does not have any conflict with anybody. He's a very respected person by everyone. I'm a little bit reckless. This is why you see some safety issues when you work with me. He is very traditional. I'm very innovative. And he has great success with other disease areas while I have an evolving role in other disease areas. Now, he cannot really hide the love because in a large multi-center Arab study, of course, he represented Saudi Arabia with the majority of patients that was led by our colleagues from Qatar. They have exposed or looked at the use of medications patients with rheumatoid arthritis. And if you can see, the Saudi Arabia bar is the largest, and this is the percentage of patients on biologics compared to other countries. Now, when we talk about adverse events, it's important to differentiate between association and causality. And in JAKs, the adverse events that we're going to talk about have been clearly associated, but there is also a causality, because when you look at the inhibition of the JAK-STAT pathway, which is a really risky game to play with, you have multiple JAK-STAT receptors or JAK receptors or combinations that whenever you block any one of them, you're going to see specific adverse events. So for example, if you block the interferon pathway, you're going to see more of viral infections like herpes zoster. If you block the GM-CSF and erythropoietin pathway, you're going to see more pancytopenia and thromboembolic disease, and vice versa. Now, this is the only study I know in rheumatology where the FDA has mandated a phase 4 study just to look at safety of medications. And this is the oral surveillance study, which has clearly shown the failure of showing non-inferiority in view of development of malignancy or cardiovascular disease and thromboembolic disease. And this has been translated also in registries, where you can see in the Swedish registry an overall increased risk of thromboembolic disease. Here with multiple registries from mainly Europe, but also from the US, showing an increased risk of VTE with baricitinib as a specific drug. And when we talk about compliance, of course, I cannot break down the study we have performed, but you could see here in one of the Canadian studies, the compliance to medications is higher with a biologic with less frequency, namely golimumab and to some extent other ones. Here, another study showing that if you're using an oral medication that you use daily, you have a higher rate of non-adherence of like 30% compared to 10 to 15% of patients. Now, to leave the pill, you must switch the pill. No. So, for example, if you have pregnant ladies or ladies who want to get pregnant, and this contributes to a significant high population in our RA cohorts, these patients cannot use JAKs, so anti-TNFs would be a better choice. Now, biosimilars now are the big savers of money. If you assume that Saudi Arabia's economics is like 20% of the US economics, you're talking about more than 25 billion of savings. And now we have biosimilars of different companies, and the competition is really getting harder and harder. Now, is tofacitinib losing its patent? Yes and no. There are many lawsuits, like what happened with adalimumab. So we don't know where we're going to have the first JAK as a generic. It is true, and I really conclude with my colleague on the superiority data of baricitinib and upadacitinib against adalimumab and even on abatacept. So, are JAKs superior to anti-TNFs and abatacept? Yes, in clinical trials. The ACR guidelines put them in the same position. The EULAR, because it was published after the oral surveillance, gives them cautionary advice when using JAKs, but they're still in a quite similar position. ولكن أبغى أقول حاجة، حتى لو جاكس نتائجهم أفضل، البيولوجي يبقى عميد الأدوية. Thank you.